If this is all true, and we have also heard not just from iPolitics, we've checked from our sources inside of Parliament, and they're hearing the same rumors, folks. The party over Chris D'Entermont's floor crossing ended fast, and now the whispers inside Carney's government are getting louder. With Christmas approaching, the talk in Ottawa isn't about gifts or goodwill. It's about which Liberals might resign next. Cabinet ministers, MPs, senior staff, all rumored to be eyeing the exits as Carney limps toward the new year. Let's take a look. From iPolitics. Guilbeault to leave cabinet after Carney inks pipeline MOU with Alberta. Earlier this year, Guilbeault endorsed Carney for the Liberal leadership, though a party source told iPolitics that the longtime minister was dissatisfied with the government's recent rollbacks of Trudeau-era climate measures, like the consumer carbon price, electric vehicle mandate, and oil and gas emissions cap, which Guilbeault confirmed in his statement. The source, who asked to remain anonymous in order to speak freely, said Guilbeault repeatedly fought for the government to prioritize climate action, but he found himself unable to defend the pipeline MOU with Alberta. Early on Thursday, Carney sidestepped questions on Guilbeault's future as he defended his agreement with Alberta. Some environmentalist and BC Liberal MPs have cried foul over the prospect of shipping oil to the province's northwest coast, pointing to the region's ecological importance and the need to transition away from fossil fuels to combat climate change. But when asked pointedly if those climate commitments were enough to keep Guilbeault in cabinet, Carney said it's, quote, good enough for the government of Canada, end quote. I am the Prime Minister, and we must make decisions in the interest of Alberta, of Canada, and we must have results, real reductions in greenhouse gases. And that requires investment. Investments here in Alberta, investment in British Columbia, investment on a large scale across Canada. And with this agreement, we are creating the right investment conditions, end quote, he said. Carney's comments come amid reports that some Liberals in Caucus were unhappy with the move to make a deal with Alberta, citing concerns on the impact of their political chances in BC, and Premier Danielle Smith's flirtation with Alberta separatism and unwillingness to show leadership on the climate file. There were also concerns about the lack of consultation with Caucus and cabinet members prior to the announcement of the deal with Alberta. Another Liberal source, who asked not to be identified to discuss the issue freely, said Carney is running the Prime Minister's office like the, quote, CEO of a Fortune 100 company, end quote, that doesn't, quote, operate on consensus or a great deal of deliberation and consultation, end quote. Gee, where have we heard that before, folks? The PM, the source said, only brings into the decision-making process a select few people from the PMO and cabinet ministers like Energy Minister Tim Hodgson that are seen as in the quote-unquote inner circle. The source added that this may alienate veterans of the previous Liberal government, and there would likely be departures of politician and staff before Christmas, but that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing as there is a desire to move on from the Trudeau years. Quote, this is the Fortune 100 CEO, get out of my way party now. I think some people might leave before Christmas or shortly after Christmas before the House resumes. Do I think it's a risk to the government? I don't know. They have parted from the last 9 years of some policy decisions and certainly style and approach, so I don't know that it's a risk necessarily for people to move on, end quote, the source said, adding that some of those who have voiced concerns actually won't walk out the door because of what they would lose. Quote, being an MP for some of them is the best job they might ever get, I assume. And being a staffer at 27 gives you power and a lifestyle that you would never otherwise have in the private sector. I think for some people, they will leave. It'll be like a bridge too far in terms of policy departures and style. Will it be a risk or like a negative consequence, that remains to be seen. So this is interesting, folks, because we've been commenting on Mark Carney's style, and it's not really any revelation. You can see it as he's at the microphone. You can see it when he shows his disdain for reporters and other things. And it's not the same disdain that Pierre Poilievre will show to reporters. Pierre Poilievre is fair with reporters unless they ask these obviously gotcha questions that are designed to entrap him. But Mark Carney seems to get annoyed when reporters are actually asking reasonable questions when it comes to his government and himself. So, but we've also heard that behind the scenes, he just runs this like a CEO. He says, get it done. And he doesn't have any time for a consultation. He doesn't have any time to manage a team or anything like that. And this is the issue with Mark Carney because, again, he has never run a business. And if you've never run a business, you don't really do a lot of people managing. Now, he was vice chair of Brookfield. He was chair of Brookfield. He was governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England. But that's a different story, right? It's a different story when you're actually people managing. And most of what you need to do in politics is relationship manage. And if Mark Carney thinks that that's too much work, then he's actually going to be running into more problems as time goes on. Because even if he doesn't, cater to the Trudeau era ministers and Trudeau era MPs, and let's say they decide to leave, yeah, sure, you could say, oh well, those are Trudeau's people, and they were loyal to Trudeau, and they didn't like Carney, yada yada yada. Fine. But if he has this, inner circle thing kind of going on, he's going to be alienating any MP that either comes in to replace them or the ones that stay. And that's going to be a problem, right? Because if you never consult anybody, and the only people that you consult, even within cabinet, is a very small number of people, and think about Mark Carney being a CEO, think about Mark Carney being executive, that's what he's used to, right? As an executive, you don't consult with 30, 40 people, which is the cabinet. You consult with maybe 5 as your senior leadership team. That's what you do. So if that's what Mark Carney's doing, he's going to tick off cabinet, the majority of them, and then he's going to tick off the rest of the Liberal Party because they're going to say, well, what the heck am I here for? I was put here by the people in my riding to represent them, and I get no say in decisions. I get no say, when it comes to any of the policies that we're doing. And I find out after the fact that these things are coming. That's what seems to be happening inside of Mark Carney's Liberal Party. And it doesn't sound like the Liberal Party members are none too happy about it. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. Now, to CTV's credit, they've been talking about Guilbeault resigning, and they've been talking about potential disruption in the caucus and whether the caucus is happy or not. They've been talking about that today. How long they will talk about that, that's what remains to be seen. But I will give credit to Mike Couture, I think, on CTV, who also has a power play segment opposite to Vashi Kapellos. He's been talking to Liberals and asking them about this. And of course, the Liberals are saying, oh, no, everything's fine. Well, you didn't believe the Conservatives when they said everything's fine. Are you going to believe the Liberals when they say everything is fine? Despite the fact that there's more stuff coming out about the Liberals. So if this is all true, and we have also heard, not just from iPolitics, we've checked from our sources inside of Parliament, and they're hearing the same rumors, folks. So if this is true, then in the next couple of weeks, we may see a bunch of more resignations happening, and possibly people leaving caucus, possibly people leaving their seats, if this is true. And if we see people leaving seats, that opens up the possibility of by-elections. Could be people in BC leaving their seats. That's going to open up some big gaps, right? big gaps and big seats. Maybe for the NDP to win some, maybe, well, unlikely, maybe for the Conservatives to win some. So the Liberals may have gained a seat when it comes to Chris d'Entremont. But if they have people that actually step out and we have to go to by-elections, those by-elections have to happen. So Carney will have to call them really quickly to get them done. And B, who's to say that the Liberals are going to win them back? That's another question. So they may be backsliding even further into the 160s in terms of seat count, making confidence votes that much harder. Also remember, if any MPs do abdicate their seats and resign, and there are confidence votes, there's nobody in those seats to take their place. So that means there's even less. And what is this going to do nationally in terms of the confidence of Canadians in the Liberal cabinet, in the Liberal government, when Mark Carney seemingly is ruling with an iron fist and people are leaving left, right, and center? I guess we'll see. The media narrative will no doubt be, well, it's Mark Carney's strong leadership that is pushing these people out. That's what I expect to hear. Well, Mark Carney, he's trying to take a strong stance and he's rebranding the Liberal Party, and these people are Trudeau-era MPs, and they just can't take it. So this is a good sign for the Liberal Party, right? It's a sign of terrible leadership when Pierre Poilievre, seemingly has issues within his caucus, but it will be a sign of strong leadership when Mark Carney does. Just you watch. That's what we're thinking is going to happen. But this is where it comes down to what's going to happen, right? Now, Chrystia Freeland, she's said that she's going to be accepting her new CEO position in Oxford in July of next year. Well, that's a bit odd to be accepting a CEO position while you're a member of Parliament. So this is just another inclination that we're probably heading towards an election prior to the summer. So she may know that an election is coming one way or the other. Either Mark Carney intends to call one or the government will fall. My guess is it's the former. The question is how many MPs and ministers are we going to be losing before the next election actually happens? If iPolitics is correct and the sources inside Parliament that we're hearing from both agree, and this all comes to pass, Mark Carney is not going to have a nice Christmas day. He's going to be having to explain to the media, hopefully ad nauseum, that he is a strong leader and his caucus is doing just fine despite the fact that they're falling out of the sky.